Hey, this is Andy Jenkins with the Oily App Podcast. In this series, we're starting something completely new. What we're going to do is actually talk to you about why you need to look at Young Living as a potential business. In fact, I would say you absolutely owe it to yourself. Now, I've got it right here. You could probably hear the pages kind of flipping right there. That is the book. It's one of the newest that we've written. We've got now 12, 13 books. We call them like the books you'll actually read. They're all short books. This one is Boost. Work from anywhere, be well, and live the life of your dreams. This is a class that we wrote the book for first. And then Ernie and we actually shot the video course on it. And so what I want to do is I'm going to take you into the audio from the first video course right here where we talk about this dreaded thing that's called the time for money tango. In fact, that's the villain that many of us face is you can either have a lot of time and no money, or you can have a lot of money but no time. So if you have a lot of time, that means you got a lot of free time, but you're not working a whole lot. Or you could have a lot of money because you are working a whole lot, but not yet have free time. And most people feel like there's just this scale. You can see that on the graphic that's related to this release right here, that as one goes up, as time goes up, money goes down, or as the other goes up, money goes up, time goes down. And what we're going to talk about in this video, or rather the audio from that video lesson, is that that's not necessarily true. Now, this one's important because even if you're not motivated by money, this is the dance that most people step full stride right into, and it is a rut. We're so conditioned by our culture to do this that many people emerge from college with massive debt, almost guaranteeing that they're going to stay on this treadmill, stay trapped by this victim, or trapped by this villain rather, for decades. But there is a better way. Now, I'm not saying any path is perfect. I'm not saying any path doesn't have flaws, but there is a better way, and we're going to outline that better way right here in the Time for Money talk about stop trading time for money. We're not trying to sell anything, not trying to necessarily promote anything, but rather show you the opportunity that's already there in front of you, particularly because most of the people, I would say probably 90% or more of the people that are here are already members of Young Living Essential Oils. And so what we're going to do is show you over the next, I'm hoping we can do this in about 60 minutes, but if it takes a little longer, it takes longer. If it takes shorter, it goes shorter. And we're going to show you really how to jump off the time for money tango. Lately, there's been all this discussion about essential workers and non-essential workers, and some people are working from home and some people aren't working at all. And it's really just highlighted the need to have an alternative. And so that's really what we're going to show you. But it's not that this COVID, Corona, whatever you're going to call it, is the reason that you might want to pursue a different business or an opportunity financially, another income stream. It's just highlighted something that's already been true all along. This class that we're putting together has not been put in response to Corona. It was something that, honestly, our team, we went to Tanzania this past fall, climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with Hope for Justice, and we were putting together this information on the way over there, and then we were writing it on the way back. And so this has kind of been in the hopper for a long time, and I'd been studying it and putting together pieces in rough draft form even about a year before that time. So now it's kind of the first time we're teaching it, but it's been in the hopper for a long time. Okay, that said, we're going to get started. Let me tell you who I've got on board tonight, because you're really going to lean in and learn from his wisdom. I've got Ernie Yarbrough with me. Ernie and his wife Myra are Royal Crown Diamonds, and I don't want to take anything from his story because he's going to get to that at the very end after we give you a lot of information. And I will tell you this is I know him personally. They walk with high honor, high integrity. They do everything in their business extremely well. And extremely graciously, extremely transparently, have a really fun team, an incredibly great dynamic on that team. He's actually one of my best friends, so I'm kind of giving you probably a little different introduction that you might normally get. I know the good, the bad, and the ugly, and the great all in one. And so I've got, kind of, I feel like a special inside view of kind of the real world that they live. And they're by no stretch of the imagination perfect, but I tell you what you see on Facebook with all of the social media and everything, and what you see on Instagram, like that's just kind of the real them. And they're just that's just them. Like what you see is what you get. And so because of that, and because of their success in the business, like they're the perfect people to bring on board and share this with you. Ernie is actually the founder of Oily App. And so all of this kind of stuff that we put together came from him. I got invited into it later on. So that's it. Ernie, you there? You can see, hear.
Yep, I'm here. I'm excited, ready to rock it.
Let's start off. What I want to do is I want to break this up into 4 parts. And so on the rewind, we'll break it up into 4 different videos that people can watch. But we're going to take it all at one shot. And I'm kind of watching the clock here. Here's the first idea that we want to get into is let's talk about the time for money tango there, Ernie. You know all about this one. I know about this one. The whole goal of this class is to help people work from anywhere, live the life of their dreams while they escape the 9-to-5. They live well, meaning healthy, and not just well physically healthy, but emotionally, spiritually healthy. They're able to do more good than they ever thought possible. And they're also able to bring people along for that journey with them. The network marketing thing that we're talking about shouldn't isolate them from people. It should actually involve and invite more people in. And what we want to do is realize as we're teaching this, that you have to have a model that works, particularly if people don't have a lot of time, because that's kind of what we're up against. And even if they don't have a lot of money to get started. My story, I think, is a lot like yours, Ernie. Years ago, I remember we were living paycheck to paycheck, struggling. This was the pillow talk almost every single night is, you kind of lay down and you finally get your feet off the ground. And all of a sudden, the conversation shifts really quickly to finances. And in that moment, you're thinking about going to sleep, you're exhausted, but then you got to have a money talk because you're not getting ahead. One of the kids needs shoes. You've done the right thing and you've put money in savings at the beginning of the month, but now you got to transfer that money out of savings. And just when you're thinking, well, this kid needs shoes because they've legitimately run a hole through their shoes. Yep. You've got oil that needs to be changed. You've got a power bill that you got to pay. It's already late in the week. You promised yourself that this week would be the week you spend time with the kids. This would be the week that you pursue your dream. This would be the week that you even work on a business opportunity, but the week has evaporated. It's already Thursday and you're just kind of wondering, there's no money, there's no time. Where did it all go? And that's where we really get into this big idea of there is a villain that we're all dealing with. And that villain is kind of that time for money tango. And we have this idea that there is a swap, there is a scale that when one goes up, if you have more free time, the amount of money you have goes down. Or if you make more money, the amount of time that you have goes down. And what you generally see with most people, situation I was in, is there's really never enough of both. You don't have enough time or you don't have enough money. Talk about that a little bit, Ernie.
Yeah. So certainly, I mean, we've been there before too. We had those same conversations back. People are sure remember back in 2008, when the economy crashed, we were in a situation where we had consolidated debt. We had credit card debt. We had, I was gone. I had to work 2 jobs. So I was working, my degree is engineering. So I was working in the steel mill and then that was 4 days on, 4 days off, nights, days, swing shift, working the second job, 4 days somewhere else. Right. And realizing that, the reality is that the only way at that moment I had the ability to bring money into my family, because we were trying to just pay a mortgage, right, was to literally swap time for money. And so that's when, my wife and I were as we began to search and she was searching too while I was gone, right. Working days and the nights and then gone working through 3 states on other stuff, that there's got to be a better way for me to be able to pour into my kids. Because I think so often, sometimes, one of the sad realities about just trading, that the only way to make money is trading time for money, is that so often our families become the casualties in that.
Right. Well, and I put that on this orange slide right here that you've got on the screen is this whole getting off of that time for money tango is because, again, that is the thing that we're trying to solve here is, you're swapping time for money. Getting off that is not about being able to afford a fancy vacation. It's not about being able to afford a bigger home. It's not about being able to, drive a fancy car. It's not about, all these other things that you typically think.
Right.
This is a necessity, and that time for money tango is the villain, even if you're not motivated by money, because it still takes money.
That's right. And even there, like I tell my wife, like one of my, I try to pick where I put my time. Well, I'm not a mechanic. I'm not a car repairman, right? And I've changed the starter, I've changed the oil before, but I prefer not to. And so even if I choose to try to save money to put it towards a nicer car, it's because I want to have that time to spend with my family. Right. So my ultimate motivation there isn't, like if you've seen the Christmas Carol, right, or the modern stories of Scrooge, right, isn't so I can have coins to count, but it's so I can, the greater motivation for me is so that I can have time freedom to be with my family.
Right.
My friend,
I was talking
go
to
Kilimanjaro, hike mountain,
Yeah. Well, I was talking to a guy, he was probably 24 years old, and I was in a small group with him last fall. And, everybody at 8:00 was always rushing out the door, like going to go clock in.
Right.
And I wasn't doing that because I had a normal rhythm where in the morning I would take a couple hours and go write. That's one of the things I do. You guys have read some of our books, as a matter of fact. And he was wondering, why was I not always rushed out? And so I explained some of the things about residual income, some of the things we'll get into in this webinar. And he said, well, I'm not motivated by money. And I said, but you're looking for something different. You're always talking about, hey, pray for me. I'm looking for another job. Why are you looking for another job? And he said, because my wife is pregnant. We already have one kid. And so this is a young father, new family, starter family. And he said, I'm working 65 hours a week. And so I don't ever see them.
Yep.
And he was willing to work the 65 hours a week to put food on the table.
Yep.
He would have done that forever. But at the end of the day, he realized, okay, even though I'm not motivated by money, it still requires money. I still have to swap that time from my family for money. So, in my personal story, what I saw is with this time for money thing we're going to get into, it wasn't just about the good times. It was a couple of years ago, we hit this big crisis point in our home, and we were not able to work as much as what you might typically work far less. The crisis we were in required total time and attention. But even in that, we still got paid. And the reason we got paid is because we were not doing that time for money tango. We had another income stream coming in that we'll talk to you all about.
And I want to say there too, like in the whole point of wrestling with the time for tango money, is not to make fun of or to denigrate or to belittle those who are in the 9 to 5. I have been there. Mine wasn't just 9 to 5. It was 6 to 6, 12-hour shifts, days and nights, second jobs. But the whole point about the 9 to 5 is that, or whatever, is not that we're looking down on our parents, our grandparents, our great grandparents, and that we have disdain for them because they were farmers, or in my case, a steel worker or a teacher. Like, we honor them by recognizing the sacrifices they made. But just like they made use of the best tools and technologies that they had in their generation, we want to make use of the best tools and technologies for our generation, so that we can take that ability to not trade essentially ever and always time for money to the next level, so we can have a proper balance. Because the reality is, like, if you have passions, and I'm a passionate person, like you spend time and you invest time in those passions, but it's nice when you can choose those times and passions. I mean, the reality of work, of course, is that you're always going to have to pour in, focus, give your best, but when you can do that in the context of being idea and passion driven, and not simply having to be somewhere, at one location in order to just make money, that's a wonderful blessing for you and your family.
Well, that's a great point that you bring up, is that there's kind of this trajectory economically. Like, if you would have asked people 200 years ago, if they were interested, maybe more than 200 years ago, if they were interested in leaving their home to go work at a factory, or go work at a retailer, or go work at a store, most of those people would never have been able to envision that, because they worked at the house and they bartered and traded and swapped. And now it's kind of swapped. If you ask people, hey, would you like to just work on your land all day? Most people would say, no, of course I'm going to go to this because economically the way you earn money is swapped. And what we're saying is there's another opportunity on the table.
Right.
Yeah, we'll show you some of that.
A really cool book that I read in literature was Hard Times by Charles Dickens, and he chronicles the story of the breaking of the Industrial Revolution, and that was kind of chronicled that whole swap where people went from a family centric view of making a living to the whole trading time for money. It's a great book.
Well, that leads to the next slide right here. So getting off this time for money tango, it's not the way we're going to present this. It's not about just freedom to do anything and freedom to do, whatever you want to do. Okay, go drive a fast car, build a big house, all that kind of stuff. It's really about freedom to do what you need to do and being able to focus on the people that matter the most to you, the things that matter the most to you. So that's really the angle that we're taking on. And again, there's a lie that you can't have both. The false belief is that if you have more time, you don't have as much money. If you have more money, then you must be sacrificing all the free time that you have away from your family. And so again, the lie is there's never enough of both. When I was in seminary, I remember I didn't have any money. And so because I was taking classes all the time, I had all kinds of free time. This was when I was in graduate school. And so I finished what would be about a 3.5 or 4 year degree. I finished it in 2 years because I had all kinds of free time. Now, there were other men who were, 15, 20 years older than I was. I was in my early 20s. These guys were working at churches. They had families. They had all this responsibility. And whereas I was on the program to get a 3.5 or 4 year degree in 2 years, they were on this plan where it was going to take them 10 or 11 years. Yep. They had money. Of course, they had to use it to pay bills, but they didn't have any free time. And so I was kind of going that way towards I had the time. They were going that way towards they had the money. What we're saying is you don't have to choose one or the other. Right now, we're in the middle of this, sheltering in place, quarantine, not to get political about any of that. But the reality is right now, everybody has a lot of time, but a lot of people don't have much money. And it's kind of showing that highlight of most of the time you're swapping one for the other. Ernie, fill us in on anything you got on that.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that, I've got a lot of friends who are in that situation because they can't give their time where they want to give it in terms of making money. But the blessing is that, right, they're with their family. But the problem is that I got to provide for my family. I was laughing with my wife. I said, maybe I should get out more because my quarantine life isn't much different than my non-quarantine life. And we laugh about that, right? I went to the gas station to get gas and literally I paid at the pump and I literally walked into the gas station just to say, how y'all doing tonight? And just talk to them. But we were laughing
just
about that.
Just to see a person.
Just to socialize with somebody. But I thought, what a blessing, isn't it? What a blessing it is when you begin to utilize modern tools and technology to the point where, like, I can make the choice to be with my family. I mean, yeah, I have to work as well. I mean, sometimes I have to pull late night shifts or things that I'm doing with the online work that I do. But the blessing is that I can come up to my office 2 miles from my home and do that on an as needed basis, right? And so, I mean, it's just it's an incredible blessing when you can have time and money. And then, if you need to give more concerted time over here at one point, that's fine. You can do that, whether it's work or whether it's family. But I've been so removed now from having to put in for paid vacation because by the grace of God, we've had that separation, whether it's just enough money to make it work or a little bit extra to separate that whole reality of time for money.
Right. Well, I think that's what we're getting at is, what we want to do is have people show them how to make a few shifts right here in this webinar. And then the result will be both time and money will come to them. So you're not having to chase either one. You're not having to chase time and leave money behind. You're not having to chase money and then leave your free time behind. Make a few swaps. Both of those really come your way to where you're not looking at a time versus money. Again, that's the villain, the time versus money tango. It's really, you can have time and money. Okay, so that's what we want to achieve in this.